of that. But it is something that generally you have to have a 4-year degree or trained in a very specific thing that would be maybe a professional kind of background, absent a 4-year degree. And the countries, you can apply directly to countries, which you couldn't when I was applying it. It applied to regions. I said, send me anywhere, I said, but if you could send me anywhere, I'd go to Eastern Europe or Africa. So, either of those, because I said a little bit of French, so I thought maybe it'd be some use there. But they put me in Bulgaria. We had to learn the language. Everybody had to learn language. Yeah, so you have to have a 4-year degree. It's generally the people who do it are 1 year, 2 years out of university. And it's wherever they have postings for volunteers and whatever the countries are asking for, whether it's youth development or health and sanitation or community development, things like that. Yeah.
And it's nice that we're sitting next to each other, as AmeriCorps is domestic Peace Corps. So also John F. Kennedy vision, Lyndon B. Johnson really pushed it forward, and in 64, 65 AmeriCorps became a thing. So there's multiple branches of AmeriCorps. There's NCCC, National, I wrote down, let me get my cheat sheet. NCCC is the National Civilian Community Corps. I was a VISTA, Volunteer in Service to America. AmeriCorps also supports FEMA Corps, Forest Corps, and Senior Corps. And the main difference between VISTA and every other option, how I describe it, is VISTA is really focused on sustainability and programming. So the way I kind of think about it, VISTA is like behind the curtain at the theater and everyone else is performing. That's kind of what our role was. With AmeriCorps, you just have to be 18. Be 18, pretty much, and wanting to give of yourself for 365 days for a living stipend. And terms are either a full year, half year, and you can go up to, I think, 2 to 4 years, depending on your experiences. Again, it's a living stipend-based program. They did offer an education award, which was a huge benefit to me. So after I finished my AmeriCorps term of service, I was awarded $5,000 that could have been used for furthering my education. That went right to the student loans, assumption I'm still paying. Unfortunately, AmeriCorps is not existing right now. If you go on their website, it says it's under renovation. It's not. So that was really challenging for me to come to think about as I come in here today talking about this incredible experience I had with AmeriCorps. From my quick research, I think there's still about 2,000 members that are still in service. However, they're not going to have access to that Siegel Education Award. They're not going to have access to their living allowances, which is tricky. But AmeriCorps, just as much as Peace Corps, is filling in very much needed gaps that our government is lacking.
So the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, we have a representative here so they can share a lot more about the facts, figures, and kind of its origins. But at its core, it's based on 4 principles of social justice, simple living, spirituality, and community. And the way it worked, at least in the international iteration of JVC, so there's the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, which is basically a domestic volunteer program where they have sites all over the country. There's also JVC Northwest, and so they serve the Pacific Northwest, and I believe in Alaska, I don't know if that's PNW, that's just my ignorance, but I did the international iteration, and I was part of the last cohort of international volunteers, and so it no longer exists internationally, but domestically it does, and so I just thought that'd be important to name. And the stipends are all slightly different, and amenities tend to be provided, but it's very minimal. And the ways in which you live into those values, each community is very different. And what was unique about being in the international cohort is that it's a 2-year program. And so typically JVC is 1 year, and you can apply for a second year, and you become what's called an AWOC, an additional year volunteer, and you tend to serve in a different location than where you served. And so with international, when I began my international stint, there was already someone who had experienced a full year of immersion, so they can kind of welcome us, ease us into the community. And then when we finished our first year, a new cohort would come in. And so communities varied from 3, as small as 3 people, to 7. So it does vary.
Hi again. So I work for Assumption Mission Associates, and I'm sure those of you on campus have probably run into the sisters. They're lovely. So I've been working for them for 2 years, so I've done 2 different service locations. So Ireland, but that's now retired. But we still have plenty of options for those who are looking. We have the Cane House here in Worcester. Ryan, shout out. And then we also have New Mexico and Chaparral. We opened a new one in Lithuania. If anybody is looking to go to Lithuania, this might be your chance. We have a community in the Philippines for service, and then also Newcastle, England. We currently have AMAs here in Worcester. I'm one of 3. And then we have 2 in Newcastle, which is awesome. So it really depends on what type of service you're doing per location. So for example, here in Worcester, I work a lot with St. Peter's. So we do a lot of their food pantry and ITGSL on top of working for the parish, among other various things. But our girls in Newcastle, they are taking this opportunity to work with under kids who are experiencing poverty in an after-school program, which is really wonderful. They're having a great time. And in Chaparral, there's a lot of work with immigrants. As for Lithuania, that would be teaching English. And in the Philippines, I believe it's also teaching English. So that's kind of what the AMA kind of looks like. We're looking for postgraduate volunteers. So after you finish your college experience, and the stipend does depend on where you go. So when I was in Ireland, L'Arche paid my stipend, which was €250. But now that I am here working in Worcester, my stipend is $400 a month.
Great. So there's no question that each of your experiences was very transformative, right? If you can briefly tell us how the transformation was like, who you were before. You have to be courageous, right, to apply to something like this. But who were you before this experience, and how did that experience help shape who you are today?
I love this question. So when I think of myself before I embarked on my journey abroad and serving God, I was very quiet, and I never really knew how to speak up for myself, kind of just go with the flow. And I had so many transformative experiences. I can name a few. Like, I remember with my lovely group of girls that I was working with, one of my closest friends from Kenya, I remember when she opened up to me and told me that she was saving her €250 stipend to pay her own dowry for herself and her sister and her mother, so that they could be free to marry whoever they want. And I was like, wow, like, we are so privileged. Like, I had no idea. I just remember, even just talking about it now, I was like, it was one of those times in my life where I was like, oh, wow, this just changes my whole outlook. And like, experiencing life with people with intellectual disabilities was also like one of the greatest blessings of my whole life. Just seeing the genuine joy, like connection brought, changed my life forever. Seeing how happy they are to share their lives with you and vice versa, it changed me forever. So I love talking about it, but I can't wait to hear you guys.
Yeah, I think for me, something that challenged me to grow or discover about myself, I think I came in very passionate, very fiery, wanting to sort of be changed by the experience, but I thought like people coming into this experience, 2-year commitment, like we're gonna get people who are devoted and ready to jump in. And with the international rotation, typically volunteers, like you would graduate say in like late May, June, and then orientation would happen like late July, and then you would depart for your country. But my departure time, because of the school, start of the school year, was in December. And so from applying, getting accepted in February of 2018, then waiting until orientation, I was like then re-energized and seeing all this cohort of like, I think there were 17 of us leave, and them sharing their stories on our little WhatsApp group, and I'm like, oh, I want to be there so bad. And then just waiting, and then December hits, it's like we leave before Christmas time, kind of intentionally so that we can go fully in. And I remember meeting my community mate and struggling because I remember like wanting so much to just like get right into the service. And we spent about 3 weeks just in migration, like doing migration paperwork in Lima. And during that time, my community mate wanted to like go out and experience the country, and I was like, I didn't come here to be a tourist, or at least my judgment of that was that. And I was really like kind of just a grouch the whole time, and I was just like, oh, this is delicious food, but like this isn't why I'm here. Or like, it's really cool to see all these sites and barracas and staying in like hostels and all this stuff. But I was like, I'm here to like volunteer, you know, I'm here to serve. And then just that delay really helped me realize that like just how critical I was of and how small my understanding of what it meant to serve was. And I didn't come to appreciate it until like as they were leaving the next year, or as we were becoming second years. You know, I had about 2.5 months with the next community cohort, and I was so excited to finally get into another year of service I was going to be accompanying immersion trips, student groups, medical groups, and translating for them. And March 2020 happened, and we were repatriated. And to kind of share some of Tyler's notes about like privilege and being able to always go back, I was like, what was the point of this like trial in solidarity? Like what was the point of this? And it was through that I realized that I didn't appreciate my first year because I was so blinded by my own expectations of what the year should have been, or I didn't savor the gifts of what my community mates had to offer because I had such a narrow sense of what that could be. And so it was actually being repatriated and having to leave that experience, feeling like spiritually homeless after devoting my life to this, that I discovered how little I realized what a privilege it is to be able to come back home, whereas some folks aren't able to. I think I learned a lot about gratitude and just enjoying the moment for what it is, and even if it's not what I imagined, being okay with that mess. So yeah.
So again, for me, it was like the blinders off moment, like leaving this bubble, leaving my rural upbringing in like a town of more cows than people, and then really immersing myself in Worcester. So I think who I was in my AmeriCorps year was a child, and learned a lot. And now I really think about who I am as an individual and what AmeriCorps and my service here did. It just taught me who I am. Like, who am I? What are my strengths? What am I good at? What am I not good at? Like, what do I not want to do with the rest of my life?